Really quick, everybody, this entire video will be timestamped, so if you don't want to watch the whole thing and just get straight into a different fight, please check the pinned comment or the little red bar right down below you. Again, this entire video will be timestamped, and I'd appreciate you guys watching whatever part that you liked. If you're sticking around, guys, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with too many YouTube channels, and welcome back to a full card breakdown and predictions video, this time for UFC 289, Nunes versus Aldana. I won't say anymore, won't keep you for the intro. Let's get into it. Timestamps are there if you would like to use them. Starting off with the first fight, we have Diana Belbita versus Maria Oliveira. Now, I'm not so sure what's going to happen with this one because the odds as of right now on Topology, they make total sense. It's a really close fight. You have Diana Belbita, who hasn't fought in, it's been over a year. I know it's been a long time for her. She's kind of an okay fighter. She kind of sometimes swings wild, but sometimes you get the same with Maria Oliveira. However, her kicks are something to kind of look out for. She's coming off of a really tough loss to Vanessa Demopoulos, which I'm not so high on Vanessa Demopoulos. I don't think that loss ages very well, and I thought Maria was going to win that fight. So I was a little bit really not so impressed with her. I mean, she kept up the whole time, but still, I was like, oh man, I guess she wasn't as good as I kind of expected her to come in. Her record kind of speaks for itself. Same with Diana, and this is why it's going to be a really close fight. So Oliveira does have a little bit of a problem against wrestlers, and Diana Belbita sometimes does come in with a game plan to grapple. I think it all depends on this fight. Will Diana come in and want to take this fight to the ground and beat up Maria Oliveira for there? If so, she should be able to get the win. But if this stays striking, Maria Oliveira does have a lot more power, and with Diana's wild striking, and I understand Maria's not the most technical fighter herself, I feel like Oliveira will do some nice damage on Diana on the feet. The problem is Oliveira doesn't have good takedown defense, and Diana could shoot. It all kind of comes down to what the game plan is for Diana, in my opinion. And if she's not affected by ring rust. Like I said, it's been a year and 3 months, which is wild. I'm still going to lean with Maria Oliveira. If she loses this fight, I don't think I'm ever going to pick her again. But I'm going to pick her this time around. Not so sure about it. Moving on to the next fight, we have David Dvorak versus Steve Erceg. Now, Steve Erceg is making his short notice UFC debut. I haven't been able to really go back and watch any of his fights. I have not seen him before. But I've seen highlights. I guess the common consensus kind of is this dude is a pretty good grappler with some okay stand-up. Very confident in himself. Taking on David Dvorak, and I gotta say, I can't pick a guy that's coming to the UFC without any UFC experience against a guy who is pretty well-rounded in David Dvorak, coming off of 2 rough losses, but it's not like he looked horrible in either of those losses. He's been in the UFC for a long time. He's had a big training camp for this fight, and this guy just basically got called off the couch. As far as I'm aware, I don't know how much he's actually been training, but regardless, David Dvorak is fight-ready, in shape. We've seen him proven against himself. The record's pretty good. He's always had some pretty good fights and good performances. I can't not take him against a guy who hasn't been in the UFC. So I'm going with David Dvorak on this one. Moving on to the next fight, we have Blake Bilder returning against Kyle Nelson. Now, Blake Bilder, I'm kind of high on. I really like this dude, and I've been watching him since he came on. Was it the Contender Series he came on? Yes, it was. Okay, I remember that now. Sorry, my apologies. Kyle Nelson, he's taken on, and Kyle Nelson, he's had a little bit of a rough go coming off of that. People could call it a loss against Doo Ho Choi. There was a little bit of a point taken away. That was an issue. Before that, a little bit of a rough go, okay? He's only had 1 win of his last 5, of course, as you can see. And he hasn't looked the best in those fights. He's looked okay, but for the most part, he's been struggling. So I want to say that somebody with the momentum of Blake Bilder and somebody who's been looking better every single time that we see him is going to win this fight. He should be better. I would imagine he'd be better both on the feet and on the ground, no matter where he wants to take the fight. Of course, he'll probably want to take him down. I've just been really impressed from what I've seen to Blake Bilder, man. But the problem is, Kyle Nelson, he's taken on some really good fighters, okay? Throughout his entire career, he's been in the UFC for a long time. Blake Bilder hasn't fought anybody of the Kyle Nelson, where Kyle Nelson kind of sits in the rankings, which is a little bit unknown. So experience might come into play here. And I believe the day is coming where Blake Bilder will run into somebody like maybe a Kyle Nelson. I would imagine he'll get past this one. But when he gets a little bit more up in the division, because featherweight's pretty stacked with talent, once you get somewhere around the top 20, I'd say, I imagine Blake Bilder running into some issues. I'm not confident that he is going to be, yet at least. He improves every time we see him so far, so this could change. But as of right now, I don't see him really being a top 15 guy. But Kyle Nelson might be the guy to stop him. I just think that's coming, but I don't think it's coming with Kyle Nelson yet. I think Blake Bilder will be better everywhere. I think he'll be a little bit of a step ahead. I'm going to pick Blake Bilder in this fight. I'm not like overly confident, but confident enough to pick him. I actually might bet on this fight. Moving on to the next fight, we have Aiemann Zahabi versus Aoriqileng. Now, Lang has a little bit of a weird UFC run so far because he came into the UFC, got 2 losses, and didn't look horrible in those 2 losses, but you know what? There's still 2 losses at the end of the day. But then he came back and has looked better and better. Both fighters are fairly inactive. Aiemann Zahabi coming off of 2 really good wins, and especially I would say he looked better in these wins than the Mongolian Murderer did. The thing that's worrying me right now is Aimann's inactivity and his age. He's getting up there in age, so what point is his age really going to show? 35 is typically okay, but I also, in this fight, it's not like he relies on his like cardio advantage or his pressure or anything like that to win fights. He doesn't necessarily rely on his power, but his power plays a really big factor into that, and that's still going to be there even without his inactivity. Might be a little bit less accurate, might take a little bit to get in there, but Lang hasn't been that active either. 8 months, 1 year ago. This is a little bit of a closer fight, but I'm leaning towards Zahabi to get the win. I think he'll be a little bit better technical everywhere. The only thing that worries me is the inactivity. And plus, he's Firas Zahabi's younger brother, so he's in a gym training with some absolute killers, and we already know that. That gym is fantastic. So, but then again, they come in, 2 losses here, so I would imagine he's going to be getting better and better every single time we see him. He has looked good, like I said. Well, he definitely looked better than those losses. I'm going to pick Zahabi to win this fight. I'm kind of like 70-30 on this one, maybe 80-20 actually. Moving on to the next fight, we have Jasmine Jasudavicius versus Miranda Maverick. Now, this is a little bit of a toughie. I am going to pick Miranda Maverick because, first of all, Jasmine, if you take a look at her record, she looked good so far coming out of Canada. She's looked really good. She's 34 years old, so that's something to keep in mind too. Her level of competition is not good. It's not good at all. Natalia Silva is the best fighter that she's fought, and she lost that fight. Miranda Maverick, on the other hand, take a look at her level of competition coming in. And while she did lose against Erin Blanchfield, and that's a little bit of an issue because she's fighting someone with kind of the same style, but not nearly as dangerous as Erin Blanchfield. Macy Barber, she probably won that fight. I know a lot of people think that she won that fight. I have to go back and watch it to remember what I was thinking at the time. But her record is a lot better, and I think the odds justify that. I think Miranda Maverick will come in there with the game plan to wrestle, take her down, but the problem is Jasmine will probably want to do the same thing. So I would imagine Miranda Maverick would get the better of it. I can't see Jasmine really. Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. Women's MMA, anything can happen. But I feel like Maverick will just come in there and do what she does best. She's going to be younger. She's going to be stronger. I don't know if she'll be hungrier. Jasmine's fighting in Canada and hasn't really had her spot in the shine yet. I don't know. I'm going to pick Miranda Maverick to win this fight, but, anything can happen, right? Moving on to the next fight, we have Nassourdine Imavov versus Chris Curtis. Now, this is going to be a really interesting fight. There's some pros to each fighter in this matchup here, man. So, Nassourdine Imavov coming off of that horrible loss against Sean Strickland. He was getting pieced up, and I think, actually, this might work in Chris Curtis' favor because Chris Curtis is friends and training partners with Sean Strickland. So maybe Sean could give him some tips here. I don't know how much that would really work because Sean has a very different fighting style than Chris Curtis. So I don't make of that what you will. But Chris Curtis is coming off a loss to Kelvin Gastelum. If it wasn't for the headbutt in that fight, you could argue that Chris Curtis was going to win this fight. Regardless, coming off of 2 wins, looked really good against Joaquin. Oh, that's not true. He looked good in the knockout. Before that, it was like, I don't know. Imavov, though, he will be taller with the same amount of reach, which is really interesting. I don't know. I was a little bit high on Imavov. He looked good before the Sean Strickland fight, but then he just looked so horrible in that Sean Strickland fight. He looked like he was a step behind the whole time, and Chris Curtis is a really good striker, really good boxer in himself. This is probably going to be a stand-up fight, but even if Imavov wants to take it down, Chris Curtis has some of the best takedown defense in the division. I'm leaning towards Chris Curtis to win this one, man. I don't know how much the Sean Strickland advice will really help him. I would imagine he's going to get some. They train together all the time, right? But Imavov got hit a lot in his last fight, and Chris Curtis hits really hard, but Imavov has a really good chin. That's the little bit of a problem there. Imavov, I could see pressuring and Chris Curtis kind of countering with bigger shots than what Sean Strickland was doing. I'm leaning towards Chris Curtis in this matchup. I'm kind of like 70-30 in this one, but I am going to pick him to win this fight. Moving on to the next fight, we have Eryk Anders for taking on Marc Andre Barriault. Now, Eryk Anders, he's always been pretty consistent. He's been the same guy his entire career. Very spotty record, very strong, amazing athlete, kind of okay everywhere. Nobody really sticks out, but he's coming off of an insane performance against Kyle Daukaus. But the problem is that's Kyle Daukaus, and Kyle Daukaus was extremely overrated and couldn't really take on a guy like Eryk Anders. Marc Andre Barriault, though, you want to talk about coming off of a performance? Oh my god. I picked Julian Marquez in this fight. I thought Marquez was going to murder him. I thought it was a great stylistic matchup. But he showed power, he showed cardio, he showed the will to kill in this fight. And oh my god, did he do that. I really, really liked the performance he's coming off of. And how long ago was that? That wasn't that long. 2 months. Yeah, exactly. However, you got to look at both these guys' records. Very, very spotty. However, I will note, Marc Andre Barriault, the guys he's lost to are a lot better, not a lot better, better than Eryk Anders, specifically the last couple opponents. I really like Andre Muniz as a guy to lose to, but even against Jung Park, he was a split decision. So make of that what you will. I like Marc Andre in this matchup, though. I feel like these two are going to come in there and just bang it out. And I feel like Marc Andre will hit, while Eryk Anders is the stronger guy, and you could say, like, if they were to clinch and wrestle, I'd give the edge to Eryk Anders. I think he'd be stronger. But when it comes to punching power and striking, I feel like Marc Andre is more accurate, going to hit better. He's going to find that chin more often. And the punches are going to be just straight up harder. Anything could happen because these two are probably going to go at it pretty hard. But I am going to lean towards Marc Andre Barriault to win this fight. I just really like the win that he's coming off of. He really impressed me in his last fight. And again, I understand that Marquez isn't like, oh my god, you beat a champion. I just really like the way he looked and that killer instinct that he brought in the fight. And we have seen it before. But he has momentum to it. He's fighting in Canada. He'll want another performance like that. Eryk Anders, when's the last time Eryk Anders fought? 5 months ago, it was a little bit. So not enough for ring rust to really take place. But 36 years old, he's getting up there. I like Marc Andre in this fight. I don't know if I'll bet on this fight. I might look into a finish going either way, this fight not going into decision, but the video will be out this week of my official bets, so I'll keep this one in mind, but the pick's going to be Marc Andre Barriault. Moving on to the next fight, we have Dan Ige versus Nate the Train Landwehr. I love watching both these guys fight, and I don't like that they're matched up because I don't want to see either guy lose. Dan Ige, I really was happy that he won because he has fought, and this is the big thing about Dan Ige. He's a very, very underappreciated fighter. He has fought nothing but absolute animals. And the losing streak that he had, and he finally looked great against Damian Jackson. It's not that he didn't look great. I mean, like, he's kept up in these fights. He just, unfortunately, fought tough after tough after tough opponents. Nate the Train, though. The story with Nate the Train is always the same. He's going to throw crazy. He's going to move forward. He's going to take you down, do whatever he can to outwork you. A sloppier Colby Covington, if that makes sense. Nate Landwehr, actually, while the same game plan is always there and he always throws himself into the fight, gets into trouble, and then overcomes adversity and wins the fight, he actually looked a lot better against Austin Lingo. And I assumed he was going to win this fight. So I was correct in making that prediction. But it seemed like there was a little bit more technique in this fight specifically compared to what we've seen from Nate the Train. Tough fight to pick. Because Dan Ige will be more powerful, he'll be more accurate, he'll be better, and he'll have the better fight IQ. But Nate just has a way of breaking people, and so far, he's been able to walk forward with no matter who hits him with what. That chin's going to go one day. 35 years old, who knows how long he can put this pressure on, but he's still been looking good, and his fight was recent. 2 months ago. 2 months ago, he put on an insane pace again, so I'm not worried about his age or anything like that right now. Tough fight. Dan Ige's going to crack him. He's going to crack him hard. Will Nate Landwehr go out? Because he hasn't fought anybody to the level of Dan Ige yet. This is absolutely a fight to stay away from when you're betting. I'm going to make a video about that again. If you made me pick... Oh, man. If you had a gun to my head, I would say Nate the Train. But, man, this fight could go either way. Dan Ige could crack him and knock him out, or Nate the Train could just outwork him and win a decision. I have a hard time seeing Nate Landwehr being able to submit Dan Ige. Gonna be an exciting fight. I'm gonna hate watching it, but love it at the same time because I'm a big fan of both guys. But I'm going to slightly lean to Nate the Train, but I'm unsure about this fight completely, guys. Moving on to the next fight, we have Mike Malott versus Adam Fugitt. Now, this one I'm not so sure of, because Mike Malott, we've seen him so far, and he's had a couple fights in the UFC, and he's looked fantastic. But I haven't really seen him face any adversity yet, and Adam Fugitt might be the guy to do it. He hasn't fought somebody that'll give him the pressure that Adam Fugitt will kind of put on him, and that's why I kind of question this fight. Mike Malott will definitely be the better striker, but Fugitt has pretty good wrestling and ground control. So I don't know how this fight's going to really go. I would imagine Mike Malott, he's pretty all-rounded. It's just we haven't seen him against this specific matchup. He's taken on for example, the guys that he's fought, Mickey Gall, while he is a jiu-jitsu guy. It's not the pressure that Adam Fugitt will really put on him. You know what I mean? It's a tough fight because Fugitt's coming off a really nice win too, but we have seen him get cracked before recently 9 months ago. Mike Malott could absolutely chin him. It all depends how he's going to deal with Fugitt's forward pressure. I think he'll be okay. He will certainly be the better striker, so maybe while Fugitt's going in for a takedown or something, he could get cracked. I'm fairly confident that Mike Mallott's going to win this fight. But I'm not 100%. I just haven't... A lot of people are high on this dude. A lot of people are high on the Canadian prospect. I just haven't seen enough for me to go, okay, I'm convinced yet. You know what I mean? And even with this win, I'll still be like, I don't know. But don't get me wrong, he's looked really good. I don't know. Something about it's making me wonder if Fugitt will take him down and control him. That's why I'm not so sure about this fight, but I'm going to pick Mike Malott to win this fight. Then we have the fight that everybody has been looking forward to, Charles Oliveira versus Beneil Dariush. This fight is going to hurt my heart because like Nate the Train and Dan Ige, I'm more invested in these guys, to be honest with you. I don't want to see him lose, but I'm going to hope for Dariush because he hasn't had the title yet and he's been fighting for so long. I made a very, very long breakdown on this, but Charles Oliveira, to sum it up, he's of course coming off of that really, really bad loss to Islam Makhachev. Before that, straight wins, looked like an insane killer. And for a long time before that. Beneil Dariush, though, very, very underrated record, getting win after win after win after win, and then he fought Mateusz Gamrot. I, at the time, and still am, was very, very high in Mateusz Gamrot. I thought he was going to steamroll Dariush, but then Dariush looked better than ever. He was accurate. His scrambles were insane. His cardio was on another level. I believe that Beneil Dariush, while he was already an amazing fighter, improved for this fight against Gamrot. Charles Oliveira, though, he's in a must-win situation. Charles Oliveira is coming off a fight where he looks human. On the feet and on the ground, I believe it's tough because I want to say that Charles Oliveira is a better technical fighter. But Charles Oliveira doesn't always fight technical. You know what I mean? It's like calculated chaos. You know when we say that? He has a lot of technique behind what he throws, but at the same time, he has no problem leaving his chin out there to get hit. Beneil Dariush could absolutely crack him. And to be honest with you, I really see a scenario. While I'm not confident that's going to happen, I would not be surprised at all if we saw a little bit of a repeat with Islam Makhachev. The reason Islam did so good was because he has very underrated striking. He cracked Charles Oliveira. But then he wasn't afraid to fall into the ground. Like guys like Dustin, like guys like Justin. You know what I mean? So many fighters are afraid to go to the ground with Charles Oliveira. Islam was not and was able to finish him after he hurt him. I can see that exact same thing happening with Beneil Dariush. He is a very underrated grappler, and especially against Gamrot. His scrambles were amazing. I have a hard time seeing Charles Oliveira being able to submit Beneil Dariush unless Charles Oliveira absolutely rocks him with a knee or something. It's a tough fight. I can see Dariush cracking him with an overhand right or something like that, and then following him to the ground. Charles Oliveira, this is a tough fight to pick, man. I'm leaning towards Beneil Dariush, kind of like a 60-40 thing. And my heart's not in it. I promise you I'm doing this objectively. I really want Dariush to win, but I'm leaning towards him to win because I can see a little bit of a repeat of what we've seen with Islam Makhachev. But if you put Charles Oliveira up against pretty much the rest of the division, I would lean towards Oliveira. I really like this matchup for you, and I was really just so impressed by Dariush's win against Gamrot. I think he's got momentum. I think he might be hungrier. I gotta pick Dariush, but I'm not sure about it. Charles Oliveira is a dog, man. Charles Oliveira, it will be probably better on the feet and on the ground, to be honest with you. He'll probably be more technical, but Dariush might win the fight, if that makes sense. I can see Dariush getting the better of so many exchanges. They both have animals inside of them, and I cannot wait to watch this fight. This fight should be 5 rounds. It really should. I got to pick Dariush, though. Not confident in it at all, but I am going to pick Dariush. I could see a repeat of what happened with Islam Makhachev happening in this fight. Moving on to the very underwhelming main event, which Charles Oliveira should be the main event, by the way. Amanda Nunes versus Irene Aldana. Now, Aldana is an okay fighter. She's coming off of 2 pretty good wins. A really, really weird win with the up kick to the liver, if you remember that. But there's not too much to really ride home about her. She's a good striker, and we've seen her on the ground, but like not necessarily anything to, like I said, ride home about. Amanda Nunes speaks for herself. The greatest of all time when it comes to women's MMA, coming off of an amazing win of Juliana Pena. A loss to Julia Pena before that, which doesn't make any sense, and before that, steamrolled everybody and did whatever she wanted in every fight. Amanda Nunes should be better everywhere, more powerful, should win this fight. Whatever she wants to do, she should be able to do. My only concern is that I wonder if the performance that we've seen against Juliana Pena will show up again, because Nunes, she's happy with life now. She's getting up there. She has a kid. She could be getting complacent like they did with the Juliana Pena fight. We've seen her, and before that, she said she was comfortable and didn't train. I totally believe that compared to coming back and absolutely annihilating Juliana Pena. So I'm staying away from this fight when I bet, because I'm afraid that Amanda Nunes might show up. If that Amanda Nunes does show up, the one that showed up against the first fight against Juliana Pena, Irene Aldana has a chance. Other than that, she should get stomped however Amanda Nunes wants to stomp her. So the pick's Amanda Nunes, but the upset could happen. With that being said, though, guys, that is every single fight on the full card breakdown and predictions video for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what your picks are down below, and I would love to hear about them. If you want to continue watching the Klembat channel, there'll be 2 videos on the screen right on the right side if you want to check them out. Thank you so much, guys. I will see you in the next video. Take care.